Why there be a worse sound than a phone ringing at 3 a.m.? The shrill tone sliced through the silence of my tiny apartment, yanking me out of a dream I couldn't even remember. I fumbled for the device, my heart already pounding, half from grogginess and half from some primal dread. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. 3 years ago, I'd walked away from my family, cut every tie, blocked every number, built a wall so high no one could climb over it. Whoever this was, it couldn't be good. But some stupid gut feeling made me swipe to answer. A voice I didn't recognize crackled through the line, sharp and official. "Is this Elena Carter?" I mumbled a yes, my throat dry. "I'm Officer Daniels with the County Sheriff's Department. I'm sorry to inform you, but there's been an accident involving your parents, Richard and Linda Carter." My stomach dropped. Accident. That word hung in the air like a guillotine blade. He kept talking car crash, late night, no survivors, but I barely registered the rest. My parents were gone. Just like that. 3 years of silence, of resentment, of unanswered questions, and now, nothing. No chance to scream at them. No chance to ask why. No chance to fix anything. I sat on the edge of my bed, the phone still pressed to my ear, long after the officer hung up. The room felt heavier, like the walls were pressing in. I hadn't seen Mom or Dad since the day I left, a day burned into my memory with the kind of clarity that hurts. We'd fought the kind of fight where words cut deeper than knives. I was 22, full of anger, convinced they'd never understood me, convinced their expectations were chains I had to break. I told them I was done, that I didn't need them, that I'd build a life without their rules or their disappointments. I saw the pain in Mom's eyes, the fury in Dad's, but I didn't care. I walked out, slammed the door, and never looked back. Now they were gone, and I was left with a hollow ache I didn't expect. I thought I'd feel nothing after all this time. I'd spent years hardening myself, telling myself I didn't care, that I was better off alone. But sitting there in the dark, I felt like a kid again, lost, small, desperate for someone to tell me it was okay. Why did I still care? Why did it hurt so much to know I'd never hear Mom's quiet lectures or Dad's gruff attempts at humor again? I hated them for so long, but now I hated myself more for letting that be the last thing between us. The officer had mentioned arrangements, funeral details, legal stuff, a house I hadn't stepped foot in since I left. I didn't want to go back. Every part of me screamed to stay here, to pretend this call never happened, to keep my distance like I always had. But there was something else. He said something that gnawed at me. "There are matters regarding their estate that require your immediate attention." Matters. What did that even mean? Debts, secrets, something they'd hidden from me all these years. I thought I knew everything about them, every flaw, every mistake. But now I wasn't so sure. I paced the apartment, my bare feet cold against the hardwood. The life I'd built here was small, quiet, safe. A job at a local bookstore, a handful of acquaintances' nights spent with cheap wine and old movies. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Going back meant tearing open old wounds, facing a past I'd tried so hard to bury. I could ignore it, let someone else handle whatever matters there were. I could keep my walls up. But what if there was something I needed to know? Something that could explain why things went so wrong between us. What if walking away again meant I'd never get those answers? I stopped pacing and stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. My eyes were red, my face pale, like I'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to face the ghosts waiting for me in that old house. But as the first light of dawn crept through the window, I knew I couldn't stay here either. Whatever was waiting for me back home, I had to find out, even if it broke me all over again. I stood at the edge of the airport parking lot, the rental car keys digging into my palm, staring at the road that would take me back to the house. I swore I'd never set foot in again. The air was thick with the scent of rain, the sky a heavy gray that seemed to mirror the storm brewing inside me. 3 years had passed, but the thought of driving down those familiar streets felt like stepping into a time machine, one I wasn't ready to board. I'd flown halfway across the country, in a daze, barely sleeping, haunted by the officer's words about matters in my parents' estate. What could they possibly have left behind that required me of all people to deal with it? The drive was a blur of muscle memory. Every turn, every stoplight, every faded sign triggered a memory I'd tried to bury. There was the diner where Mom used to take us for milkshakes on Sundays, her rare attempt at being the fun parent. There was the park where Dad taught me to ride a bike, his gruff voice shouting encouragement until I finally got it. And there, just beyond the next intersection, was the high school where I'd spent so much of my life feeling invisible, especially next to Cassie. My sister. The golden child. The one who could do no wrong. Even now, miles from home and years from those days, her shadow loomed over me. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my knuckles whitening. Why was I even thinking about her? She hadn't crossed my mind in ages. Or at least I'd convinced myself she hadn't. Pulling up to the house felt like walking into a memory I couldn't escape. The chipped blue paint on the front door, the creaky porch swing, the overgrown rose bushes Mom used to fuss over, it was all the same, yet somehow smaller. Sadder. I sat in the car for a long time, unable to move my breath shallow. I didn't want to go inside. I didn't want to smell the faint trace of Dad's pipe tobacco, or see Mom's collection of porcelain figurines on the shelf. I didn't want to feel the weight of all the things we never said, but I had no choice. Whatever matters awaited me, they were in there and I couldn't keep running from them. The key still fit the lock turning with a reluctant groan. Stepping inside was like stepping into a photograph, everything frozen in time. The living room couch still had the same faded floral pattern, the coffee table still bore the scratch marks from when I'd carved my initials at 13. I half expected to hear Mom's voice calling me to dinner, or Dad's footsteps on the stairs, but there was only silence heavy and suffocating. I dropped my bag by the door and moved through the house like a ghost, my footsteps echoing on the hardwood. Upstairs, their bedroom door was closed. I couldn't bring myself to open it. Not yet. In the kitchen, I found a stack of papers on the counter, legal documents, bills, a yellowed envelope with my name scrawled across it in Mom's neat handwriting. My heart stuttered. I hadn't seen her writing in years, but it was as familiar as my own. I reached for it, then pulled back my hand, trembling. What could she have to say to me now after all this time? After the way we'd left things, I'd spent so long telling myself I didn't care, that their opinions, their love, their disappointment, it all meant nothing to me. But standing there staring at that envelope, I wasn't so sure anymore. What if it held an apology? Or worse, what if it didn't? I turned away, my gaze landing on a framed photo on the wall. Cassie and me, maybe 10 and 12, grinning at the camera during some family vacation. She was all golden hair and perfect teeth, her arm slung around my shoulder like she owned me. I looked awkward, half smiling, always the afterthought. My parents had hung that photo where everyone could see it, a constant reminder of who mattered more. Growing up, Cassie was the shining star, the one who got the praise, the attention, the love I craved. No matter how hard I tried good grades, art projects, even joining the stupid debate club, my efforts were met with a pat on the head and a quick glance at whatever Cassie had done better. I'd spent my childhood in her shadow, desperate for a sliver of their light, until I finally decided I didn't need it. I'd make my own. But standing in that kitchen with the weight of their absence pressing down on me, I wondered if I'd ever really escaped her shadow. Or theirs. The envelope still sat on the counter, taunting me with its secrets. I wanted to tear it open to know what Mom had to say, but something held me back, fear maybe, or the nagging suspicion that whatever was inside would only confirm what I'd always felt, that I was never enough. And then there was Cassie. Where was she in all of this? Why hadn't she been the one to get that 3 a.m. call? Why was I here alone dealing with the mess they'd left behind? I needed answers, but I wasn't sure I was ready for them. Not yet. I stood frozen in the kitchen, the envelope with Mom's handwriting staring back at me like a ghost I couldn't face. My fingers hovered over it, trembling as if touching it would reopen every wound I'd spent years trying to close. I could almost hear her voice, sharp and measured, telling me to sit up straight, to try harder, to be more like Cassie. The memory stung a bitter reminder of the dinner that had shattered everything the night I'd walked away from them all. My chest tightened at the thought, but I couldn't push it down any longer. I needed to remember to understand why I was here alone in this house full of echoes. It was 3 years ago at a family dinner I'd dreaded from the moment I got the invitation. I'd been living on my own for a couple of years by then, piecing together a life far from their expectations, working odd jobs and painting on the side. Art was the one thing they couldn't take from me, the one space where Cassie's shadow didn't reach. But Mom had insisted I come home for this special occasion. Her voice on the phone was warm, almost pleading, and for a fleeting moment I let myself hope that maybe, just maybe, they'd finally seen me. So I went wearing my best shirt, my heart a mix of nerves and fragile optimism. The dining room was set like a stage, the good china gleaming under the chandelier, the air thick with the scent of roast chicken and garlic. Dad sat at the head of the table, his face stern as ever, while Mom bustled around fussing over every detail. Cassie was there, of course, looking polished and perfect in a navy dress, her smile as effortless as always. I took my place across from her, feeling like an outsider in my own family, my hands fidgeting under the table. The conversation started light, small talk about work, the weather, Cassie's latest promotion at some tech firm. I nodded along, waiting for my turn to speak, to share something about my life. But it never came. Then, halfway through dessert, Dad cleared his throat, the sound cutting through the clatter of forks like a gavel. He stood holding a small velvet box in one hand and a set of keys in the other, keys I recognized instantly as belonging to the family company, the hardware business he'd built from scratch. My stomach twisted. I knew what was coming before he even spoke, but I still held my breath, hoping against hope I was wrong. "Cassie," he said, his voice thick with pride, "we've decided it's time for you to take the reins. These keys and everything they represent are yours now." The room seemed to shrink, the walls closing in as Mom beamed and clapped her eyes solely on Cassie. My sister accepted the keys with a graceful nod, her thank you speech polished as if she'd rehearsed it 100 times. I sat there, invisible, my dessert fork frozen mid-air. I'd never wanted the company, not really, but I'd wanted something. A nod of acknowledgement, a word of encouragement, a sign that I mattered just as much. Instead, I got nothing. Not a glance, not a word. It was as if I weren't even there. The hurt burned into rage, hot and immediate, searing through years of quiet resentment. I pushed my chair back with a scrape that made everyone flinch, the noise louder than I'd intended. "So that's it," I said, my voice shaking but clear. 30 years and I don't even get a mention. Mom's face fell, her mouth opening to protest, but Dad's eyes hardened, his silence louder than any words. Cassie looked away, uncomfortable, the keys glinting in her lap like a crown. I didn't wait for their excuses. I couldn't. The air was too heavy, the weight of their indifference crushing me. I grabbed my coat from the hall and stormed out, the slam of the front door echoing behind me. Outside, the cold bit into my skin, but it couldn't match the ice in my chest. I walked for blocks, not knowing where I was going, just needing to move to escape the image of those keys in Cassie's hands. I told myself I was done with them, with their expectations, with the endless competition I could never win. I'd build my life without them, far away where their approval meant nothing. That night, I thought I'd walked out of their lives forever, but standing in this kitchen now with Mom's envelope on the counter and their ghosts all around me, I wasn't so sure. Had I really escaped, or had I just been running from a truth I didn't want to face? And what was in that envelope that could possibly change everything or break me all over again? I stood there in the kitchen, the weight of Mom's envelope pressing down on me like a stone I couldn't lift. My mind was still tangled in the memory of that disastrous dinner, the moment I'd walked out vowing never to look back. But here I was, years later, with their shadows creeping into my new life, a life I'd fought so hard to build, a life they refused to see. I'd moved to a new city, found a small apartment, and poured myself into my art, even landing a few local gallery shows. I thought I'd rewritten my story, left their judgment behind. Yet somehow they'd found a way to rewrite me instead. I'd heard the whispers through mutual acquaintances, the occasional message from a distant cousin who felt obligated to update me. My family had spun a tale where I was the villain, the ungrateful daughter who turned her back on them for no reason, who abandoned her duties, her roots, her blood. Mom, with her knack for dramatic storytelling at church gatherings, painted me as selfish, reckless, a cautionary tale for other wayward children. Dad, in his quiet, stoic way, likely reinforced it with his disappointed sighs and headshakes at family barbecues. And Cassie, I imagined her staying silent, letting the narrative build around her like a fortress, her perfect image untarnished while I became the outcast. Their lies spread faster than I could counter them, seeping into the cracks of my new life. Old friends from home stopped reaching out their messages, replaced by awkward silences or vague apologies. I heard what happened, one wrote before, ghosting me entirely as if I'd committed some unforgivable sin. I wanted to scream to set the record straight, but what was the point? They'd believe the story that felt easier, the one that didn't force them to question my parents' golden facade or Cassie's shining pedestal. So I stayed quiet, focusing on my canvases, letting my art speak the truths I couldn't say out loud. Each brushstroke was a rebellion, a way to reclaim my name, my worth. But the hurt festered beneath the surface, a wound that never quite healed. I'd lie awake at night replaying that dinner, wondering if I'd overreacted, if I should have stayed and fought for a seat at their table, literal and figurative. Was I the ungrateful one too quick to run? Or were they the ones who'd failed me, who'd never even tried to see me beyond Cassie's shadow? The questions gnawed at me, eroding the confidence I'd painstakingly built. I'd check my phone sometimes, half hoping for a message from Mom or Dad, some sign they regretted their words or their silence. But there was nothing. Until now. Until this envelope with Mom's familiar cursive mocking me from the counter. I thought I'd escaped their narrative, but their version of me had a life of its own, growing wild and untamed in my absence. It followed me to gallery openings where a well-meaning stranger once asked, "Aren't you the girl who walked out on her family?" The words hit like a slap, and I mumbled something incoherent before excusing myself to the bathroom, my hands shaking as I gripped the sink. How could their story reach so far? How could it still have this power over me? I'd built walls around my heart, but their lies were like ivy creeping over every barrier, strangling the peace I'd tried to cultivate. And yet, as much as their words hurt, I couldn't help but wonder if there was a kernel of truth in them. Had I abandoned them? Not in the way they claimed, but in my refusal to reach out to try and mend what was broken. I'd chosen distance over confrontation, silence over messy reconciliation. Maybe I was running just as much as they were rewriting. The realization stung, adding another layer of doubt to the pile already weighing me down. I glanced at the envelope again, my pulse quickening. Whatever was inside it held their version of the story, or maybe a chance to rewrite it once more. But there was something else too, a whisper of a rumor I'd caught just last week from an old family friend who'd accidentally let it slip over coffee. Something about Cassie, about a mistake she'd made a secret the family was desperately trying to bury. My breath caught at the thought. Could it be true? And if it was, did Mom's letter have something to do with it? A crack in their perfect narrative, a truth even they couldn't control. I reached for the envelope, my fingers brushing the edge, my heart pounding with a mix of dread and desperate curiosity. What if opening it meant facing a truth I wasn't ready for? I stood frozen in the kitchen, the envelope still untouched on the counter, its presence a ticking bomb in the quiet of my small apartment. My heart thudded as I replayed the rumor about Cassie in my mind. Something about a mistake, a hidden truth the family was scrambling to cover up. Could Mom's letter be tied to that? Was this her way of reaching out? Or was it just another layer of their carefully crafted narrative to pull me back into their web? My fingers hovered over the paper, trembling with a mix of fear and a burning need to know. But before I could decide, my phone buzzed, shattering the silence. The screen lit up with a name I hadn't seen in years. Aunt Clara. My stomach dropped. She was the only one in the family who'd ever reached out with kindness after I left. Though even her calls had dwindled as the years passed, I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the answer button. Why now? What could she possibly want after all this time? With a shaky breath, I pressed accept, her voice crackling through the line before I could even say hello. "It's your mother," she said, her tone heavy with something I couldn't place. She passed last night. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I knew I had to tell you myself." The words hit me like a freight train, knocking the air from my lungs. I gripped the counter for support, the room tilting as my mind struggled to process it. Mom was gone. Just like that. No warning, no chance to say anything goodbye. I'm sorry, I hate you. I love you. Nothing. Clara kept talking, her voice a distant hum, as she explained there'd been a sudden heart issue, no time to prepare, and that the funeral was in 3 days back in our hometown. She paused, then added softly, I hope you'll come. I know things have been complicated, but it might be a chance to close some chapters. Her words lingered, a quiet plea wrapped in empathy. I mumbled something about needing time to think, ending the call before the tears could break free. I sank into a chair, the envelope now glaring at me with even more weight. Mom was gone, and whatever was inside this letter was the last thing she'd ever say to me. My chest tightened with a storm of emotions. Grief, anger, regret, all swirling together until I couldn't tell them apart. I'd spent years building walls to keep her out, to keep all of them out, and now death had torn those walls down in a single moment. How was I supposed to feel about a woman who'd shaped me with both love and pain, who'd let me become the family's outcast without a fight? The thought of going back to that town, to the house I'd fled, to the people who'd rewritten my story, made my skin crawl. I could already picture the whispers at the funeral, the sideways glances, the murmured judgments about how I'd finally shown up only after it was too late. And Cassie. Oh, Cassie. She'd be there, no doubt, standing at the center of it all, her perfect image polished brighter than ever in the face of tragedy. I could almost see her now, her icy stare cutting through the crowd, daring me to step out of line, to challenge the narrative she'd so carefully guarded. But beneath the dread, a small, stubborn part of me burned with a need to face them. To walk into that church head held high and show them I wasn't the broken girl they'd painted me to be. Maybe Clara was right. Maybe this was a chance to close chapters, or at least to rewrite the ending on my terms. And then there was the rumor about Cassie. The whispered secret I couldn't shake. What if going back meant uncovering it? What if it was the key to dismantling the lies they'd built around me? I glanced at the envelope again, my hands still unsteady. Whatever was inside it couldn't hurt me more than the silence of these past years, or could it? I reached for it, my breath hitching as I slid my finger under the seal, the paper rustling like a whisper of the past. But before I could pull out the letter, a sharp knock at my door startled me, freezing my hand mid-motion. Who could it be at this hour, and why did my gut twist with the sudden irrational fear that it was someone from home? I stood there, the envelope half opened in my trembling hands, the sharp knock at the door reverberating through my tiny apartment like a thunderclap. My heart raced as I set the letter back on the counter, my mind spinning with irrational fears. Who could be here at this hour? I hadn't told anyone about Mom's passing yet, not even my closest friend. The thought of someone from my hometown showing up unannounced felt like a violation of the fragile sanctuary I'd built. I wiped my sweaty palms on my jeans, taking a shaky breath as I crept toward the door, each step heavier than the last. Peering through the peephole, I saw a silhouette I didn't recognize at first. A tall, broad-shouldered man in a dark coat, his face partially obscured by the dim hallway light. My stomach twisted tighter. I didn't know him, did I? Or was this some forgotten ghost from my past come to drag me back into the mess I'd escaped? I hesitated, my hand hovering over the deadbolt. The knock came again, more insistent this time, and a deep voice called out, "Hello, I'm looking for Anna. It's important." My name on a stranger's lips sent a chill down my spine. How did he know who I was or where I lived? I cracked the door open just an inch, keeping the chain locked in place. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended, betraying the fear coiling in my chest. The man stepped closer, and as the light caught his face, I saw weathered features, graying hair, and eyes that held a quiet intensity. "My name's Gregory," he said, holding up a small worn envelope that looked eerily similar to the one on my counter. "I worked with your father years ago. I'm sorry to show up like this, but I have something for you. Something he wanted you to have after he passed." My breath caught in my throat. Dad. The mention of him was a punch to the gut, stirring up a flood of memories I'd buried deep, his quiet strength, the way he'd always tried to shield me from Mom's harsher edges, and the way he'd faded into silence after their fights. He'd been gone for over a decade, a heart attack stealing him before I could say all the things I'd meant to. I'd mourned him in private away from the family's drama, but hearing his name now from a stranger no less made the loss feel raw all over again. I unchained the door slowly, my instincts screaming at me to be cautious, even as curiosity gnawed at my resolve. "What is it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper as I stepped aside to let Gregory in. He hesitated before crossing the threshold, as if sensing the weight of the moment. Then, with a solemn nod, he handed me the envelope. "It's a letter," he said simply. He wrote it a long time ago before he got sick. Asked me to hold on to it until the time felt right. With your mom's passing, I figured that time was now. I stared at the envelope, my fingers brushing over the familiar scrawl of Dad's handwriting on the front. My name, Anna, was written with a careful precision that brought a lump to my throat. How many times had I seen him jot down notes or grocery lists in that same steady hand? And yet this was different. This was personal, a message meant just for me, sealed away for years until this very moment. My chest tightened with a mix of longing and dread. What could he possibly have to say after all this time? What could matter enough to be hidden away like a secret? Gregory shifted uncomfortably, breaking the silence. "I'll leave you to read it in private," he said, his voice gentle. "I just needed to make sure it got to you. If you ever want to talk, I left my number on the back." I nodded absently, barely registering his words as he turned to go. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving me alone with the weight of 2 letters, now Mom's, still unopened on the counter, and Dad's burning a hole in my hands. I sank onto the couch, the envelope from Dad resting in my lap like a live wire. My mind raced with possibilities. Was this an apology for not protecting me more? A confession of his own regrets? Or was it something else entirely? Something that might shatter the fragile image I'd clung to of the only parent who'd ever seemed to truly see me. I glanced at Mom's letter across the room, its presence a reminder of the grief and anger I was still wrestling with. Which should I read first? Which would hurt more? My fingers trembled as I slid them under the flap of Dad's envelope, the paper rustling softly in the stillness. But just as I began to pull the letter free, my phone buzzed again on the counter, the sound slicing through the quiet like a warning. My heart stuttered as I glanced at the screen, seeing Aunt Clara's name flashing once more. What now? Had something else happened, or was this her way of pressing me to come to the funeral? I froze, torn between the words in my hand and the call I knew I couldn't ignore. I sat frozen on the couch, Dad's unopened letter weighing heavy in my lap, my gaze darting between it and the buzzing phone on the counter. Aunt Clara's name flashed on the screen, a relentless reminder of the family ties I'd tried so hard to loosen. My thumb hovered over the ignore button, but guilt gnawed at me. What if something had gone wrong? What if this wasn't just about the funeral, but something more urgent, something I couldn't avoid? With a shaky breath, I set Dad's letter aside and crossed the room, each step feeling like wading through quicksand. I picked up the phone just before it went to voicemail, my voice tight as I answered. "Hello, Anna, thank goodness!" Aunt Clara's voice spilled through the speaker, sharp and breathless, the kind of tone that instantly put me on edge. "I've been trying to reach you for hours. Why haven't you answered?" "We've got a situation here and you need to come back to town. Now." Her words hit like a slap, the urgency in them slicing through the fragile barrier I'd built around myself. Back to town. The very thought made my skin crawl. That place held nothing but bitter memories of Mom's cold disapproval of hushed arguments, echoing through the house of a childhood spent feeling like I was never enough. What kind of situation, I asked, gripping the phone tighter, my free hand clenching into a fist. I could hear the faint rustle of papers on her end, voices murmuring in the background, a chaotic hum that only deepened my unease. "It's about your mother's will," Clara said, her voice dropping lower, almost conspiratorial. "The reading is tomorrow, and, well, there are things you need to know, things that can't be discussed over the phone. Cassie's already here making a fuss as usual, and I don't trust her to handle this alone. Your family, Anna, you have to be there. Cassie." My sister's name sent a jolt of resentment through me, memories of her smug superiority flooding back. Growing up, she'd always been Mom's golden child, the one who could do no wrong while I stumbled through endless criticism. Even after I left cutting ties to escape the suffocation, Cassie had stayed basking in Mom's favoritism until the very end. I could already picture her at the reading, perched like a queen, expecting to inherit everything Mom's house, her savings, her precious legacy. The thought of facing her, of stepping back into that battlefield of judgment and manipulation, made my stomach churn. Clara. I don't know if I can, I said, my voice cracking under the weight of my resistance. I haven't been back in years. I'm not ready to deal with all of that. Can't you just tell me what's going on? But Clara was unrelenting, her tone hardening. No, Anna, you don't get to hide from this. Your mother left specific instructions and they involve you. Whether you like it or not, you're part of this family. I've booked you a bus ticket for tomorrow morning. Be on it or I'll come get you myself. The line clicked dead before I could argue, leaving me standing there, phone still pressed to my ear. Rage and dread battling inside me. I dropped the phone onto the counter, my eyes drifting back to Dad's letter on the couch. Part of me wanted to tear it open to lose myself in whatever comfort or pain his words might hold, a temporary escape from Clara's demands. But another part of me feared what I might find another burden, another reason to feel tethered to a past I'd fought so hard to leave behind. My legs felt weak as I crossed the room, sinking back onto the couch and staring at the worn envelope. What could Dad possibly have to say that would change anything now? And how could I face Cassie, Clara, and the ghost of Mom's expectations all at once? The clock on the wall ticked relentlessly each second, a reminder of the decision looming over me. Return to a town that had never felt like home, step into a room full of resentment and unresolved grief, or stay here hiding in the safety of my solitude. But for how long I reached for Dad's letter again, my fingers trembling as I traced the edges, knowing that whatever was inside might tip the scales. But just as I began to open it, a sharp memory cut through me. Cassie's smirk the last time we spoke, her taunt that I'd never amount to anything without Mom's help. What if she was right? What if going back only proved her point? My breath hitched the letter slipping from my hands as I buried my face in my palms. Tomorrow's bus ticket felt like a summons to a trial I wasn't prepared for. Would I board it, or would I let the past stay buried? Even if it meant ignoring Dad's final words, I sat there on the couch, Dad's unopened letter resting beside me like a silent accusation, my mind still reeling from Aunt Clara's ultimatum. The bus ticket she'd booked for tomorrow morning loomed in my thoughts, a tangible tether pulling me back to a past I'd spent years running from. My fingers twitched, torn between ripping open Dad's letter for some semblance of clarity and shoving it into a drawer to forget. But before I could decide, my phone buzzed again, a sharp, insistent vibration that cut through the silence of my apartment. I glanced at the screen expecting Clara's name, but instead an unknown number stared back at me. My stomach twisted. Who else would be calling at this hour? With a hesitant swipe, I answered, my voice barely above a whisper. Hello. There was a pause on the other end, a crackle of static, and then a voice I hadn't heard in years, smooth, polished, and dripping with the kind of confidence that always made me feel small. Anna. It's Cassie. My breath caught in my throat. My sister. The golden child. The one who'd stayed by Mom's side while I fled, who'd always looked down on me with that smug, knowing smile. Hearing her voice now after so long was like a punch to the gut. I gripped the phone tighter, my knuckles whitening. What do you want, Cassie? I spat, unable to hide the bitterness in my tone. She sighed, the sound laced with impatience. I'm not calling to fight Anna. I'm calling because you need to be at the Will reading tomorrow. Clara told me she spoke to you, but I wanted to make sure you're actually coming. This is important. Important to her, no doubt. I could almost see her sitting in Mom's old house, surrounded by everything I'd walked away from, plotting how to claim it all. My chest tightened at the thought. Why do you care if I'm there? I shot back, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and dread. You've never needed me for anything before. There was a long pause, and when she spoke again, her tone was colder, sharper. Because, Anna, there are things in Mom's will that complicate everything. Things you don't know about. And before you start assuming I'm just after the house or the money, You should know I've been going through her financial records for weeks. What I found, it's not good. It changes everything." Her words hung in the air, heavy and cryptic, sending a chill down my spine. Financial records. What could she possibly mean? Mom had always been meticulous, controlling every penny, every detail of our lives. The idea of something being not good under her watch felt impossible, yet Cassie's voice carried a weight I couldn't ignore. "What are you talking about?" I pressed, leaning forward, my free hand clutching the edge of the couch. My mind raced, conjuring images of hidden debts, secret accounts, things Mom might have kept from us both. But Cassie wasn't forthcoming. "I can't get into it over the phone," she said, echoing Clara's earlier evasion. "Just be at the reading. You'll see for yourself." And Anna, "Don't think you can run from this. Not this time." The line went dead, her final words slicing through me like a knife. I dropped the phone, my hands shaking her warning, replaying in my head. "Don't think you can run." Did she know how those words stung, how they echoed every doubt I'd carried since I left? I turned my gaze to the stack of papers on my coffee table, old bills and bank statements of my own I'd been avoiding. The irony wasn't lost on me here. I was barely keeping my own finances afloat, and now Cassie was hinting at some dark secret tied to Mom's money. What if it was worse than I could imagine? What if it dragged me back into a mess I couldn't escape? My eyes darted to Dad's letter again, its presence a quiet reminder of another unresolved thread. Could his words hold a clue, a way to brace myself for whatever Cassie was hinting at? But as I reached for the envelope, my phone lit up again, this time with a text from Clara. "Bus leaves at 7 a.m. Don't miss it. We found something in Mom's office. Cassie's name is all over it." My heart stopped. Cassie's name on what? The room seemed to close in around me, the weight of tomorrow's journey pressing down harder than ever. What had Cassie done, and how deep did this betrayal run? I sat, frozen on the couch, Clara's text burning into my mind like a brand. Cassie's name all over something they found in Mom's office. What could it be? My imagination spiraled, picturing forged documents, secret deals, or worse, some scheme she'd orchestrated while I was miles away, oblivious. My chest tightened with a mix of betrayal and dread, the old wounds of our sibling rivalry splitting open. Cassie had always been Mom's favorite, the one who stayed, who played by the rules. I'd convinced myself I didn't care, but now with her name tied to some unknown discovery, the sting of being the outsider hit harder than ever. I glanced at the bus ticket printout Clara had emailed earlier, the 7 a.m. departure time, mocking me from the screen of my phone. There was no escaping this, no matter how much I wanted to bury my head and pretend the past didn't exist. Tomorrow, I'd be stepping back into that house, that town, that suffocating web of family drama I'd fought so hard to leave behind. My stomach churned at the thought of facing Cassie in person after all these years, her smug expression already vivid in my memory. What would I even say to her? How could I look her in the eye, knowing she might have done something unforgivable? The papers on my coffee table, my own overdue bills and dwindling bank statements seemed to glare at me, a cruel reminder of my fragility. If Mom's financial mess was as bad as Cassie hinted, how could I handle it when I could barely keep my own life together? My fingers hovered over Dad's letter again, the familiar ache of curiosity and fear battling inside me. What if his words held some answer, some strength I could draw on before walking into this storm? But the thought of hearing his voice through those lines after so much silence felt like too much to bear right now. Instead, I forced myself to stand, pacing the small confines of my apartment, as if movement could shake off the weight pressing down on me. The call from Cassie replayed in my head, her cryptic warning about Mom's records echoing like a drumbeat. It changes everything she'd said. What could be so devastating? Mom had always been a fortress of control, every decision calculated, every expense accounted for. Growing up, I'd resented how she'd micromanaged our lives, holding the purse strings like a weapon. The idea of hidden chaos beneath that facade was almost unthinkable, yet Cassie's tone had carried a certainty that gnawed at me. I stopped by the window, staring out at the dark, empty street below. A memory surfaced unbidden Cassie and me as kids fighting over a board game in Mom's pristine living room. She'd cheated, of course, sliding an extra piece when I wasn't looking, and when I called her out, she'd just smirked and said, "You'll never win if you don't play smart, Anna." Mom had laughed, taking Cassie's side as always. That smirk haunted me now, the same one I knew I'd see tomorrow. Had she played smart with Mom's finances too? Was that what Clara's text hinted at, some betrayal so deep it could unravel everything? My phone buzzed again, snapping me out of the memory. I hesitated, half expecting another message from Clara or Cassie, but it was just a reminder notification for the bus. I let out a shaky breath, the reality of the journey ahead sinking in. I hadn't packed, hadn't even decided what to wear to confront this past I'd buried. Should I go in strong, detached, like none of it could touch me? Or would showing up as I am, scrappy struggling, still the black sheep, give Cassie the satisfaction of seeing me weak? As I turned back to the couch, my eyes caught on a small framed photo on the shelf, one of the few mementos I'd kept from home. It was the four of us, Mom, Dad, Cassie, and me, taken before everything fractured. Dad's arm was around my shoulder, his smile wide and warm, a stark contrast to Mom's stiff posture. Looking at it now, a lump formed in my throat. What would he think of me returning like this, dragged back by obligation and secrets? Would he have wanted me to fight to uncover whatever Cassie was hiding? I shook my head, pushing the thought away, but a new fear crept in as I glanced toward my bedroom door. I hadn't slept well in weeks, and tonight, with all this looming rest, felt impossible. What if I overslept and missed the bus? What if I arrived late to the will reading only to find Cassie had already twisted everything in her favor? My heart raced at the possibility, the stakes of tomorrow growing heavier by the second. And then there was Clara's cryptic text. What exactly had they found with Cassie's name on it, and how would it change the fragile ground I was already standing on? I tossed and turned half the night, the weight of tomorrow pressing against my chest like a physical force. By 4 a.m., I gave up on sleep, dragging myself out of bed to face the inevitable. My suitcase sat empty by the door, a silent accusation of my procrastination. I shoved in clothes without much thought, jeans, a few sweaters, anything to shield me from the chill of that house and the colder reception I expected from Cassie. Each item felt like armor, though I doubted it would be enough to protect me from whatever awaited. As I zipped the bag shut, my gaze fell on Dad's unopened letter, still tucked under a stack of bills on the coffee table. My fingers itched to tear it open, to let his words fortify me before stepping into the battlefield of my childhood home. But the fear of what I might find, regret, excuses, or worse, indifference, rooted me in place. I'd spent years building walls around the pain of his absence, and cracking them now felt reckless. What if his words shattered me when I needed to be strong? I turned away, leaving the envelope untouched, though its presence lingered like a shadow. The bus station was a gray, lifeless blur at dawn, the air thick with exhaust and the murmur of tired travelers. I clutched my ticket, boarding with a knot in my stomach that tightened with every mile closer to that town. Memories clawed at me, Mom's sharp voice cutting through arguments, Cassie's knowing smirks, the way I'd always been the one to storm out to run. I'd thought distance would dull those edges, but now, hurtling back toward them, every old hurt felt raw again. I stared out the window at the passing blur of barren fields, wondering if I'd even recognize the place I'd once called home. By mid-morning, the bus pulled into the station, and the sight of familiar streets hit me harder than I'd expected. The diner where I'd sulked through high school lunches, the park where Cassie and I had fought over stupid things like who got the last swing. It was all still here, unchanged, while I felt like a stranger in my own skin. I hailed a cab, the driver's bored glance a small mercy as I muttered the address. My palms were sweaty despite the November chill, and as we turned onto Mom's street, my heart thudded so loud I was sure he could hear it. The house loomed ahead, a 2-story brick relic of control and secrets. Its pristine exterior mocked the chaos I knew simmered inside, especially now with Mom gone and her will about to be dissected. I paid the driver and stepped out, my legs shaky as I approached the front door. Before I could knock, it swung open, and there was Cassie, her face a mask of cool composure. Her eyes skimmed over me, taking in my worn jacket and scuffed boots, and I saw the flicker of judgment I'd dreaded. "You're late," she said, her voice clipped as if my arrival was just another inconvenience. I bit back a retort, brushing past her into the foyer. The air inside was heavy with the scent of Mom's old lavender candles, a smell that yanked me back to every tense dinner, every shouting match. Clara, Mom's executor, and a distant cousin I barely knew, stood by the dining room table surrounded by stacks of papers. She offered a tight smile, but her eyes darted to Cassie, a silent signal I couldn't decipher. "We were just starting," Clara said, gesturing to a chair. I sat, feeling like an intruder while Cassie perched opposite me, her posture perfect as always. Clara began reading Mom's will, her voice a monotone drone of legal jargon. I tried to focus, but my mind kept snagging on Cassie's presence across the table, the way her fingers tapped lightly on the wood, betraying a nervousness I hadn't expected. Then Clara paused, her tone shifting as she slid a folder toward me. "This was found in your mother's office last week," she said, her words slow, deliberate. "It's personal correspondence, addressed to you, Anna. But there's something else. Cassie's name is all over the signatures." My breath caught a cold sweat breaking out on my neck. "Correspondence." To me, I reached for the folder, my hands trembling, but Cassie's sharp intake of breath stopped me. Her eyes were wide, a flash of something fear crossing her face before she masked it. What had she done? What was in these letters that tied her to my name in a way that could unravel everything? I flipped open the cover, my heart pounding, only to freeze as I saw the first page, a letter from Dad dated years ago with Cassie's handwriting scrawled in the margins. What had she hidden from me all this time? I stared at the letter in my hands, the paper trembling slightly as my eyes darted between Dad's familiar slanted cursive and the jagged scrawl of Cassie's notes in the margins. My chest tightened, a storm of questions clawing at me. What had she written here? Why was her handwriting mixed with his words, tainting something that should have been mine alone? I forced myself to breathe, to focus on the first line of Dad's letter, but the weight of Cassie's gaze across the table burned into me. She sat rigid, her fingers no longer tapping but clenched into fists, as if bracing for impact. I couldn't look at her, not yet. My voice came out low, barely above a whisper as I spoke to Clara without lifting my eyes from the page. What does this mean? Why is her name everywhere? My throat felt raw, the words scraping out like they were made of glass. Clara hesitated, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of another document. "I'm not entirely sure, Anna. These were found with your mother's personal files. There are several letters like this all addressed to you, but, well, Cassie seems to have been involved in their handling. You'll need to read them to understand. Involved in their handling." The phrase hit me like a punch. What did that even mean? Had Cassie intercepted these letters, hidden them, altered them? My mind raced back through years of silence from Dad, years of wondering why he'd never reached out after he left. I'd blamed him, hated him for it, but now, with her handwriting staining his words, a darker possibility took root. What if it hadn't been his choice to stay silent? What if she had something to do with it? I forced myself to skim the first paragraph of the letter, Dad's voice echoing in my head as if he were sitting beside me. He wrote about missing me, about the ache of being apart, but the sentiment felt hollow against the backdrop of Cassie's annotations. Her notes were cryptic phrases like, "not yet," and "she's not ready," circled in harsh black ink. Not ready for what? My anger flared hot and sharp, but beneath it, a deeper hurt simmered. Had she decided what I could handle, what I deserved to know? I glanced up, finally meeting Cassie's eyes. Her face was pale, her lips pressed into a thin line, but she didn't look away. There was defiance there, mixed with something I couldn't name. Guilt, maybe, or fear. "What did you do?" I asked, my voice shaking with a fury I could barely contain. "Did you keep these from me? Did you think you had the right to play gatekeeper with my own father's words?" She opened her mouth, then closed it again, her jaw tightening. For a moment, I thought she might deny it, spin some excuse, as she always did. But instead, she leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms like a shield. "I did what I thought was best at the time," she said, her tone clipped almost cold. "You were a mess back then, Anna. You wouldn't have handled it." Her words sliced through me, reigniting every old wound. A mess. That's how she saw me, weak, fragile, incapable. I wanted to scream at her to demand every detail of what she'd done, but the room felt suddenly suffocating, the walls of Mom's house closing in with their lavender ghosts. I shoved the folder shut, unable to read more with her sitting there judging me even now. "You don't get to decide what I can handle," I snapped, my voice cracking. "You never did." Clara shifted uncomfortably, clearing her throat, as if to break the tension, but I barely registered her. My mind was spinning, torn between the betrayal in my hands and the sister who'd always known how to twist the knife. I couldn't stay here, not like this, not with her watching me unravel. But there was something else nagging at me, a reckless impulse born from years of resentment and unanswered questions. Maybe it was time to stop running from her, to stop letting her control the narrative. Against every instinct screaming in my head, I made a decision, one I wasn't sure I'd survive. "Cassie," I said, my voice steadier now, though my heart raced. "I'm willing to offer you a chance to stay on here to deal with Mom's estate together, but it comes with conditions. My conditions. This isn't forgiveness. It's a test." Her eyes widened, a flicker of shock breaking through her composure, and I felt a grim satisfaction. Would she take the chance to prove herself? Or would she throw away what might be her last shot at redemption? I watched Cassie's expression shift, the shock in her eyes morphing into something harder to read. Suspicion maybe, or calculation. Her silence stretched on, heavy and suffocating, as if she were weighing every word I'd just thrown at her. My pulse hammered in my ears, my hands gripping the edge of the table to steady myself. I'd just offered her a lifeline, a chance to stay involved in settling Mom's estate, but it wasn't out of kindness. No, this was about control. For once, I wanted to be the one setting the rules, not the one scrambling to keep up with her games. "You're serious?" Cassie finally spoke, her voice low, almost a whisper, like she couldn't quite believe it. She leaned forward slightly, her arms uncrossing her fingers, splaying flat on the table as if to anchor herself. I nodded, keeping my face as neutral as I could, though inside I was a tangle of nerves and resentment. "I am, but like I said, there are conditions. If you want to be part of this, you'll play by my rules. No more secrets, no more deciding what I can or can't handle. And we start with the truth about those letters, about everything." Her gaze flickered to the folder still clutched in my hands, and for a split second I saw something raw in her eyes. Regret, perhaps, or fear of what I'd uncover. But just as quickly she masked it, her lips curling into a faint, bitter smile. "Your rules, huh? That's new. You've never been one to take charge, Anna. What's changed?" Her tone was sharp, probing, like she was testing me, trying to find the cracks in my resolve. It stung, her words echoing every doubt I'd ever had about myself, but I refused to let her see it. I leaned back in my chair, forcing a calm I didn't feel. "What's changed is I'm done letting you run the show. I've spent too long in the shadow of your choices, wondering what I did to deserve being shut out. Not anymore. If you want to stay on, you'll answer my questions, starting with why you thought you had the right to touch Dad's letters." My voice trembled on the last word, but I held her stare, refusing to flinch. Clara sat silent beside us, her presence a quiet anchor in the storm brewing between me and my sister. Cassie's smile faded and she looked away for the first time, her jaw tightening. "You think it's that simple, that I just meddled for fun? You have no idea what it was like, Anna. You were falling apart after Dad left. Mom was a wreck. Someone had to hold things together, and it sure wasn't going to be you." Her words cut deep, razor-sharp, reopening old wounds I'd barely begun to heal. I wanted to lash out, to tell her she had no right to judge me, but a part of me, the quiet, broken part, wondered if she was right. Had I been too weak back then? Had I forced her hand? I swallowed the lump in my throat, my fingers tightening around the folder. "That wasn't your call to make. You don't get to rewrite history to justify what you did. If you want to be here to help with Mom's estate, then prove you've changed. Start by explaining those notes in the margins." "Not yet." "She's not ready." "What did you mean by that? When were you planning to decide I was ready?" My voice grew steadier with every word, fueled by a rage I could no longer suppress. I slid the folder across the table toward her, the sound of paper scraping against wood unnervingly loud in the tense silence. Cassie stared at the folder like it was a live grenade, her hands motionless. For a moment, I thought she might refuse to touch it, might walk away from this entirely. But then she reached out her fingers, brushing the edge of the paper with a hesitance I'd never seen in her before. "It's complicated." She started, her voice softer now, almost fragile. "I didn't want to hurt you. I thought I was protecting you from things you couldn't handle. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe I've been wrong about a lot." Her admission hung in the air, fragile and unexpected, and for the first time in years, I felt a flicker of something dangerously close to hope. Was she finally cracking open the wall she'd built between us? Or was this just another manipulation, another way to keep me off balance? I wanted to believe her, to grasp at the chance for something better, but trust was a luxury I couldn't afford, not yet. "Then uncomplicate it," I said, my voice firm despite the chaos in my chest. "Tell me everything, Cassie, right now, or walk away for good." Her eyes met mine, wide and searching, and I saw the weight of my ultimatum settle over her. Would she finally open up, or would she choose to keep her secrets and lose me forever?